jump right in.
Well, I'm gonna just say thank you for everybody that's joining for Ethics Week on the Office of Open Government side, um, and I'm gonna let Susan get right to her presentation. Thank you all for joining.
All
Susan.
right. Kevin, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. It looks like we have over 30 people online here to talk about one of my favorite subjects, Robert's Rules of Order. Yep, it really is a powerful tool. And it's powerful when we really couch it as a tool to foster a healthier meeting dynamic. I'm going to go up on a little soapbox. We're living in this age of AI, and it's interesting thinking about where AI is influencing, impacting, elevating, expanding our life. And it really is everywhere. But if you think about the meeting room, once a motion is uttered from a human being's mouth and it is seconded, and that discussion occurs, this is the essence of human interaction. And we're needing to perfect the art of being able to really make powerful business decisions. This is a human experience, and Robert's Rules of Order is a powerful tool that can really help us in up-leveling that human experience. A motion is uttered, a second is extended, the motion is repeated, the chair asks for discussion, it asks for debate. We're able to agree and disagree, but then collectively as a board, we rely on the wisdom of the board and we take a vote on that business item. That is how decisions are made. And whether we like it or not, that's as fast as human beings can move. And so understanding this process, I think, is more important now than ever. So I want to quickly start by introducing myself and saying thank you for taking the time to be with us today. My name is Susan Leahy. I am the creator of Robert's Rules Made Simple. It's a global training and consulting firm. I've worked with boards all over the globe. I've connected with thousands of boards throughout the US and Canada, really focusing on teaching people the fundamentals of this very powerful language. Did my video just go out, Kevin? Am I still there?
Okay, it went out, but you're back.
Okay, so we're dealing with some fun stuff. We're going to keep it going. I specialize in coaching and working with meeting chairs to up-level their confidence in a meeting room. And I'm also collaborating with DC as we are providing you with chair training and Robert's Rules of Order training. All of you will see information about how to access that momentarily. So we're going to start with the 10th edition of Robert's Rules of Order. Roberts has gone through 12 revisions in its day. It was originally published all the way back in 1876. This is from the 10th edition, and this is one of my favorite statements that was listed in the preface. And it said, "But one of the greatest needs of parliamentary procedure today is for an increased, yet relatively small, basic portion of it to become common property of everyone." Wherever you are, I would like everyone to type the word everyone into the chat. So wherever you are, I would like you to type the word everyone into the chat. So this is not about becoming a parliamentarian. This is about becoming an advocate on whatever board you serve on, to make sure that everyone on your board understands the same basic portion of this language. Many boards are operating at a deficiency, and we're not operating at a deficiency with those extreme details. We're operating at a deficiency within the fundamentals. And so I'm going to be providing you in this webinar with not only a roadmap, but with resources that you can share with everyone on your board. I would love for you to please become an advocate. I'm going to check my Someone said that the audio is going in and out. I haven't had issues. This is my third webinar today. Can you hear me, Kevin?
I can hear you, but it was going in and out maybe like a couple of seconds ago.
Okay, so hopefully that just solved it. So as you're sitting in this webinar, I would like you to become an advocate, to take this information back to your board so that everyone can learn the fundamentals so that you can up-level the productivity of your meetings. Now, how do I do that, Susan? Not everyone on my board is in this training. Well, that's okay. What we're making available to you and what's available to everyone in DC is the District of Columbia's Robert's Rules of Order training portal. And this is a resource where you can go and receive training on the fundamentals of Robert's Rules of Order. And so encouraging your board members to review the webinar recordings along with the Robert's Rules Made Simple individual training program. Now, I'm going to introduce to you the roadmap, but the portal that is being made available to all of you is so that you can go on and really plug into this language. Robert's Rules of Order is like learning another language. And so while I'm going to introduce you to the roadmap, this will really be the key to make sure that everyone on your board is be able to access this tool. Because Robert's Rules of Order is a tool. It's a tool to help your board make business decisions. It's helped to keep order. It's designed to support communication. And here it is. Can I get an amen? It is designed to support us in getting more work done. Right. So we're here to really use Roberts not as a weapon, but as a tool to foster a healthier, more productive dynamic. Now, why am I starting here? I am starting here because I want you to understand that you need to start by assessing the health of your board. Some of you are coming in here and you're sitting on very dysfunctional boards. A lot of dysfunctional boards. And I always say a board doesn't need to learn how to be dysfunctional. It needs to learn how to become functional. Human beings don't need to learn how to be dysfunctional. We got that down. But we need to learn how to be higher functioning. When you think of unhealthy habits on a board, I want you to ask these questions. Are members on your board using Robert's Rules as a weapon? If any of you have ever seen someone use Roberts as a weapon, can you enter in to the chat functionality? Yes, I've seen that. So I just want to see if you've seen anyone ever use Roberts as a weapon. Have you ever seen anyone use Roberts as a way to exclude or intimidate? Have you ever seen anyone use Roberts as a tool to really manipulate what it is that they're trying to get, right? So a lot of people have seen this, right? So people's ignorance, right, of Robert's Rules of Order, right? True, a lot of people have seen this. Have you ever seen board members' behavior where board members act overly competitive? They speak out of turn, where people are creating distractions. There's a lot of confusion, and that people are intimidated or they kind of shut other people down. We're starting here because I want you to associate Robert's Rules of Order and healthy board dynamics. If you're serving on a board that says it's using Robert's Rules of Order, but you're not a healthy board, then you're not using Robert's Rules of Order properly. And you have to really assess the health of the board. This is a very easy tool. Okay, if you can find the thumbs up emoji, give me a thumbs up. Because this is it. If you walk out of your meeting and your energy is like this, woo, you got a little bit more energy. This felt productive. This felt good. That means that was a healthy meeting. If you're walking out of your meetings and you're feeling like this, you're drained, you're tired, you're feeling overwhelmed, then that means it's an unhealthy meeting. And you have an opportunity to really look at your board and think about how can we really foster a greater level of health. You don't need to learn how to be dysfunctional. You need to learn how to be high functioning. If you see dysfunction in your meetings, it is simply an indicator that you have a training opportunity. And the reason I again am bringing this up is because this webinar is just the starting point of many resources that are being provided to you and for your board members, but you have to be the advocate to make sure that your board members are using the tools that are available to them. So I want you to start advocating for the health of your board. This is not about walking in and saying we're doing it right or we're doing it wrong, because that's just going to start creating a fight. I want you to advocate for the health of your board by saying, this feels healthy. This doesn't feel healthy. And then I want you to encourage your members to think about how we can use Robert's Rules of Order to create a healthier, more productive dynamic. This, I believe, is more important now than ever. We have to start talking about how we're working together, not if we're doing it right or wrong, but if the results that we're producing are healthy or unhealthy. So I couch this conversation here because I don't want any of you to use these tools as a weapon. And what I want to do is I want to take you inside my brain real quickly. When I think about what creates a really great meeting, there's 3 C's that pop into my mind. The first C is the content. And the content is the actual work that gets done. Well, we did that. We accomplished that. We passed that. It's the work that your board does and the business of your board. And that business is facilitated by a set of rules. And many times those rules are Robert's Rules of Order. The next piece I need you to think about that influences a meeting is the context. The context is that unseen energy that wraps itself around your meetings. When you walk out of your meetings, you're going to find 3 words to define that meeting. I'd like everyone to be brave enough, and in the chat functionality, I'd like you to just type down some words that you think or feel when you walk out of some of the meetings you've been in. Do you feel motivated, excited? Do you feel tired? Do you feel drained? What do you feel frustrated? Let me hear. So I want you to just kind of write down the words of the context. So I'd like a couple people to help me out. I got frustrated, overwhelmed, accomplished, despair. We've got confused. Okay, so thinking there's a sense of this is busy. I feel motivated. So I want you to see that there's a combination of words that are coming up, right? And when you're thinking about a context, and this is what's interesting, and I want you to relate this to your life. Whether you are intentional about creating a context or not, you are always creating a context. A context is always being created. And so our goal is to make sure that we're creating a context that feels healthy, not unhealthy, right? So content, context, and then we have to start supporting our meeting chairs. Too few chairs are walking into meetings without having any formal training. If you go to the board resource portal, you will have access to my chair meeting with confidence online training. And the one thing that we know is that an empowered chair empowers the board members, right? So we're going to quickly go through this exercise because your mindset matters. You know, you can walk into a meeting and you can walk into a meeting with what's called a fixed mindset. And we see a lot of this in today's communication, where someone is walking in and they're being positional. Right, wrong, win, lose, good, bad, us, them. There's this natural competition. You know, and you're sitting in the hotbed of that in Washington, D.C. But I do believe that your mindset and your choice can pivot what's happening in a room. But if you're walking in with a fixed mindset, you're looking for how we can continue the fight. And that fight is exhausting. And so I want to offer you the concept of thinking about your mindset and how you're really using your mindset to be a tool that generates a space of win-win, of curiosity, of openness, maybe a little bit more playfulness, where we could really actually start to collaborate and get the results we want. Great meetings reside and start within the mindset of the members sitting around the table, and we are conditioned as human beings to start in the fixed mindset. And so I'm here to invite you and share with you a very simple tool that will change the energy of your meetings. And that is to know that I need to ask myself, am I in the fixed or growth mindset? And when I ask that question, and this is how we get out of it, because we can't just move from here to here, but we can move from here to here. And we can start asking the question and making the noise, am I in the fixed or am I in the growth mindset? And when I start asking that question, I start opening up, and then I start being more available to a context that is healthy and productive. So if you're on a dysfunctional board right now, I don't want you to think you're just going to fix them by teaching everyone about Robert's Rules of Order. It has to be through balancing and inviting the mindset of everyone on your board to adopt a mindset that is healthy, a mindset that is committed to being open and collaborative and being committed to growth, and then using tools like Robert's Rules of Order to help you get work done. Now, while you're here is for this next piece is Robert's Rules of Order. And I'm going to start with my 3 laws, and then I'm going to share Robert's rules with you. But my laws are simple. Law number 1, everyone on your board has to commit to learn the basics. And these basics are the 7 fundamental motions. And you'll see that these 7 fundamental motions, when everyone understands the basics, will up-level the success of your meetings. Law number 2 is that Robert's Rules of Order has to be a team-building tool. And law number 3 is that meetings should not be a waste of life. Everyone has to learn the basics. So put in there in the chat functionality the number 7. I just want you to put the number 7 in the chat functionality right now because it's that simple. You don't have to read a 700-page book. You just have to commit to learn 7 motions. And so let me share with you what those motions are. Now, when I say motion, you think question. Okay, so you hear this a lot in Robert's Rules of Order. Motions, motions, motions. A motion is nothing more than a formal way of asking a business question. So when I say motion, you think what? When I say motion, you think question, right? And when I say question, you think motion. A motion is nothing more than a question. So what I'm going to show you right now are the 7 fundamental motions, which you should also be thinking what? 7 fundamental, put it in the chat, 7 fundamental questions, right? So each one of these motions are questions. Now, why am I saying that? Because sometimes someone says to me there, I hear very often, you know, Susan, you can only have 1 motion on the floor at a time. I don't know why I use that voice, but that's the voice that came out. And that is partially true. You can only have 1 main motion. Okay, so this is the main question. And in order to start handling the business of your board, it starts by making a main motion, by asking a main question. And every single motion doesn't start with debate, doesn't start with a question. It starts with I move. I would like everyone to type I move into the chat functionality. I move. It's not I motion that, I want to make a motion that, it's I move. That's how you start the question. Now, every other block that I'm about to introduce you to, they are all motions. They're all just questions, but they are in service of the main question or the main motion. So the next motion I want you to learn is the amendment. Everybody type amendment into the chat functionality. Amendment, right? Amendment. The amendment literally means change. You can add something to or subtract something from the main question. I move to add this. I move to subtract this. I move to amend the main motion. Okay? The next question or the next motion is amend the amendment, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to change the amendment. I move to amend the amendment by striking out this or adding this. So we're further adding to what will then be added to the main motion. Everything is in service of the main business question. Main motion, amendment, and amend the amendment. out of the 7 fundamental motions I'm going to share with you today, these 3 are the most widely used, but they are the most widely misused. I have had a 20-year career helping boards just understand these 3 motions, how to make them, how to vote on them. I still watch school boards who trip up over this, legislatures who don't understand how to make an amendment, people who are intimidated to just merely make a motion. So as you're being an advocate, it's important that we understand, starting with these 7, but we're going to start with these 3. Right? So let's start with really the building blocks, the main motion, amendment, and amend the amendment. Is it still amend the amendment if the amendment is reverting back to the main motion? So if you're amending something, it needs to be a different type of change. So let's say if you have an amendment that's to strike something out, and then you try to amend the amendment by making it exactly like the main motion, what you should be doing is you should just be inviting people to vote the amendment down. I'm not in favor of the amendment, so I encourage you to vote it down because I'm in favor of what the current main motion states. So you don't need to change it back. You need to vote the amendment down so you can get back to the main business question. Okay, hopefully I answered that question that was in the chat. The next one, I want everyone to just write the word refer into the chat functionality. So I love this because we're going to refer this entire question to a committee. You can see how healthy an organization is by how it relates to its committees. Committees are designed to save you time, energy, and life. So in order for a referral to be a proper motion, you need to state 2 things. You need to state the name of the committee and when the committee is coming back. So I move to refer this to the Finance Committee to report back at our 3rd meeting in May. So you're telling the recording secretary exactly when they're going to come back. Now, what does the committee come back with if a referral passes? What does the committee bring back? The committee is bringing back a new main motion, and it could come in the form of a resolution. It could come in the form of their proposal. It could come in the form of their recommendation. It's a new main motion that we're asking the committee to bring to the board so that we can now move forward with this issue. Okay, so we're referring this question to a committee to come back with a new main motion that'll be voted on. The 5th motion or question I want you to have some familiarity around is postponed to a definite or certain time. I love this one, okay, because how many times have you ever been in a meeting and you didn't really know which way you wanted to vote, or you needed to get more information from your constituents? This is where you say, I move to postpone this to our next meeting. And then that indicates to the recording secretary that that motion is going to be put back on the agenda at a specific time. Okay, so I move to postpone to our next meeting. Now this next one, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because I say there's 7 fundamental motions, but there really are only 6 that I want you to play with because this one is widely misused. You only lay a motion on the table in lieu of more pressing business. So a lot of times people are using a lay on the table like a postponement. But the difference is when you lay a motion on the table, there is no specific time for when it should come back. And so a lot of times lay on the table isn't in order and it isn't being used properly. And so I tell my boards to not worry about using that one. Let's start with these 6, starting with the first 3, and make sure everyone understands those 3, and then we can move forward with the others. The last one is one of my favorites. It's previous question. Now here, everyone out there listening, help me out. I want you to type into the chat functionality. When you hear previous question, what should you be thinking? Previous question means previous what? Previous question means previous, aha, beautiful. Previous question simply means previous motion. So when someone raises their hand and they're recognized by the chair, and the chair says, calls their name, they say, I move the previous question, what they're saying is, I am ready to vote on the previous motion. And so the previous question is merely a motion to see if people want to stop discussion and vote on the previous motion. So if 2/3 of the room vote in favor of the previous question, that means all debate stops and we vote on the previous motion. Okay? So if you've ever been in a meeting and people are saying the same thing and debate is going on and you can tell how everybody sides in the room, we don't need to waste any life. You just simply raise your hand and you move the previous question. Now, another thing that's featured in my online training that's at the portal is it shows you the difference between calling the question and formally moving the previous question. I'm just going to say this real quickly because a lot of people use call the question. If you do not get recognized by the chair, it is not a formal motion. It is the same as just saying, I'm ready to vote. That's all you're saying when you say question without being recognized. It only becomes a formal motion when the chair recognizes the speaker. So I want everyone to take an intentional deep breath in, because I know I'm moving fast. We've got a limited amount of time today, short little hour, and we started a little bit late. So I want to make sure I get through all the information. This represents the roadmap, the 7 fundamental motions. 7 fundamental motions. There's only 6 I want you to focus on, and we're going to start by focusing on the first 3. Okay, so there is your roadmap. So that represents law number 1. Everyone has to commit to learn the basics. Law number 2 is I want everyone to use Roberts as a team building tool. I would love for you to steal this exercise and take it to your board and say, I went through this webinar with an amazing facilitator, and she asked me to do this with everyone. And I would like you to, on a flip chart, draw this graph and put numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Number 1 represents people in the room who are brand new. And as I am sharing these numbers, I'd like you to put your number into the chat functionality. Are you a number 1? You're brand new to Robert's Rules of Order. Are you a number 2? You fear Robert's Rules of Order or you hate Robert's Rules of Order? Are you a number 3? You kind of get lost easy. Are you a number 4? You feel comfortable with Roberts? Or are you a number 5? You're that person in the room who can teach it. So I'd love everyone to just real quickly, just place whatever number feels correct for you. And I want this exercise to represent your board. Okay, so take a moment and just look at those who participated in the chat right now. And I want you to look at this as if this is your board. We've got several 1s, we have a few 4s, we've got another 1, we've got some 3s, right? But we've kind of got a split between those who are comfortable and those who are not comfortable. And so what I find is that a lot of boards operate at this level, where you've got a lot of people who are uncomfortable. And so we have to create a team goal that if you're a 4, your work is not done. You have to make sure that you're helping the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s get above that line. Because let's go back to basic psychology. When human beings are uncomfortable in their environment, what are the basic human reactions? Kind of going back to basic psychology. Anybody kind of think about it? What do human beings do when they're uncomfortable in their environment? All of these words in my mind, they begin with an F. Human beings, what do? We better write these words down so we don't go too far with the F words, right? We fight, we flight, or we freeze. And I want you to think about this related to your meetings, because what I find is that when human beings are down at 1, 2, and 3, they flight. They might not say anything. They might get quiet. And we miss an opportunity to have them in the meeting. And those people who have big personalities, they tend to fight. Well, they're fighting because they're uncomfortable. And so thinking about this, getting everyone above the line with the language. Now, the last one here, I'd like you to type into the chat functionality what you think about when you see this equation. Time equals what? So go ahead and fill in the blank here. Time equals, everyone fill that out. Time equals, I see it, there it is. Money, 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 money. We could just sing the song, right? This is where we've been trained very well, that time equals money. And while that is true, there's something more important. Time equals life. I would love everybody to put a little life into the chat functionality right now, wherever you are. I want you to ground into and type in there life, because we forget. It is so easy to forget that it's not about just the money, it's about life. And if we can start operating at that level, then all of a sudden, maybe we're going to start pivoting some of the bad meeting behavior and the dysfunction that we've been falling into, right? So time equals life. And at the end of your meetings, I want you to ask this question: was this meeting a good use of our life? And if the answer is no, you have a training opportunity. If the answer is no, you have an opportunity to shepherd people and advocate people towards the training portal that I just shared with you that's being provided. Don't waste your life in poorly run meetings. Right? Your life and the lives of the people that we are serving are more important. So I'm going to take you out of Susan's rules and I'm going to pull you into the meeting agenda. Okay, so we've seen Susan's rules, and now we're looking at the meeting agenda. And I want to, again, take you into my brain, because as I look at each item on the agenda, I ask myself a couple of questions. I ask myself two things about each item. I say, is this an information item? And I ask myself, or is this a business item? Because sometimes people say, you know, Susan, we use Robert's Rules of Order to run our meetings. That's not altogether true. You only use Robert's Rules of Order when it comes to handling the business of your meetings. Information items are a completely different beast, and they should be handled in a way, and you know, I'm an auditory learner, and so I'm going to do this through kind of an auditory lesson. Okay, I want you to hear my clap real quickly. Here it goes. It's like this. Come on, come on, come on, come on. That's how information items should be in your meetings. Let's get through it. Come on. This is great, but let's go. Let's go. We're moving through. We're moving it along. And then Roberts, when you get into business, should be handled with a reliable rhythm. Okay, so this is the difference for me when I'm chairing a meeting, when I'm coaching a chair, when I'm working with a board. I want everyone to move quickly through information items, and I want people to move with a rhythm through Roberts and business items. Okay, so you're going to start by asking yourself, is it an information item? Is it a business item? If it's a business item, that's an indicator that you're going to use Robert's Rules of Order. If it's a business item, I want you to draw a triangle next to that item, because Robert's Rules of Order resides and lives inside of what's called the pyramid of precedence. So wherever you are, if you can make a pyramid with your little fingers here, sticking your thumbs together, I want you to know you've got that pyramid always with you. This structure is what houses Robert's Rules of Order. And to get into and start handling that business item is always through the same door, and that's through making a main motion. I move to make a main motion that. And once it's seconded, boom, the doors are closed, and you are now inside the structure of Roberts. And what is great about this structure is that it demands, it commands, it requests that you handle one stair step at a time. If you invite human beings into a room and you don't give them any structure and you ask them to talk, everyone will talk, right? Everyone will talk, but you won't get anywhere. So Robert says, ask the question, put the business question before the assembly, get clear on your question, and then invite discussion. How many of you are on boards or councils or committees or commissions where people will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and then somebody will say, should we make a motion? Right? So Robert says, ask the question first, confirm that someone in the room seconds it by saying, I find this topic worthy to discuss, then repeat the question so everybody clearly knows what we're talking about, and then ask for discussion and debate on that motion. Now, if we need to change the motion in any way, that's when we start using the other motions. So we've got the main motion, amendment, amend the amendment, refer to a committee, postpone to a definite or certain time, previous question, lay on the table, right? And so there's some others that are listed up there that we can learn about as well. You don't have to use all the stair steps, but they're available to you if you need them. As you make motions up, so you must take votes on your way down when it comes especially to these three. If you have a main motion on the floor, if you have an amendment on the floor, and if you have an amendment to the amendment on the floor, how many motions do you have inside the pyramid? How many? 1, 2, or 3? What's the right answer, people? If I have a main motion, if I have an amendment, if I have an amendment to the amendment, how many motions do I have on the floor? 1, 2, or 3? Help me out, people. How many motions? Okay, very important, okay? Because sometimes people will say 1. We've got somebody who says 1. We have 1 main motion, but remember, an amendment is a motion. And an amendment to the amendment is a motion. And so when a motion is made, we're asking a question. So the main motion could be as simple as, hey, you guys, do you want to buy 1 Sharpie? And then someone says, I second that. It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And then someone asks another question through an amendment. Hey, you guys, do you want to buy 2 Sharpies? Right? So then now we're talking about that question. And then someone asks another question. Hey, you guys, you want to buy 3 Sharpies? And so then all of a sudden, we're talking about that question, right? So you got to remember that each of these are questions. The main motion is a question, the amendment is a question, and amend the amendment is a question. Now, we're going to spend the last bit of this really focusing, because I gave you the 7 fundamental motions. It really is only about the 6. And these are the 3 that I want you to focus on. And I want you to focus on getting the what? Getting the rhythm of Roberts, okay? Here it is. There's rhythm. And what's amazing is that even with jazz, when people are riffing, there's a rhythm. There's a consistent rhythm that people can rely on. And so this rhythm is very reliable in Roberts. So the chair is going to notice the next item on the agenda is business item X. And the chair should ask, is there a motion regarding business item X? Okay, we don't open for discussion because there's nothing on the table. We have to first move or ask the question. So the chair will say, is there a motion? A board member will move. I move the motion. I move the main motion. The chair will then ask, is there a second? A second merely signifies that you find that topic worthy to discuss. Not that you agree, not that you disagree, just that you find the topic worthy to discuss. Really important when you think about that. If you don't agree or you don't want to discuss it, don't second it. Okay? If a motion does not receive a second, it just dies due to a lack of a second. That's it. And then the chair will say, motion dies due to the lack of a second. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is information Y, right? So let's look at this in action. We've got our second, and in Roberts, Robert says once a motion has been moved and seconded, then in order for it to become the property of the assembly, it has to be repeated. Now, I love this for a couple of reasons, because I think there's nothing healthier than a board where their members can let go of the motion, surrender the motion once it's been made. It doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to the board, right? Sometimes we get a little like, I am the maker of the motion. You're just the asker of the question. And he's the guy that's saying, yeah, I want to talk about that question. And then all of us are going to consider the question, but it no longer belongs to me. We need to let go of some of that possession we're all trapped up in this world, right? So repeat the motion. It becomes property of the board. And then the chair invites, is there any discussion or debate on the motion? At that time, you can raise your hand and you can do one of two things. You can debate for or against the motion. I agree with the main motion. I disagree with the main motion. Or you can make another motion. Okay, so can I make another main motion? No, because there's only one main motion. But I can move another motion. I move to amend the main motion, right? So I can make another motion. So let's just see this in action real quickly. So the chair says the next item of business is who we're going to give funds to for our 52nd annual community run. And the chair will say, is there a motion? And everybody says, I move to approve the request of $1,500 from the XYZ Club to support the 52nd annual United Community Run. Now, what happens? Once the motion's made, we're in the rhythm of Roberts. So the chair will say, is there a second to the main motion? Someone will second the motion, and then the chair will repeat the motion. It's been properly moved and seconded to donate $1,500 or to approve the request of $1,500 for the XYZ Club for the 52nd annual United Community Run, right? So I deliver the question, and then the chair says, is there any discussion or debate on the main motion? And at that time, you can raise your hand and you can do one of two things. You can debate for or against the main motion. I agree with the main motion. I disagree with the main motion. Or you can make another motion. Okay, now in this example, we're going to see an amendment. Okay, so let's just see that real quickly. So the chair says, is there any further discussion? Member raises their hand and they say, I move to amend the motion by striking out 1,500 and inserting 1,000. And now what do we get back into? The rhythm of Roberts, right? So the chair is going to ask for a what? Is there a second to the amendment? It's been properly moved and seconded to strike out 1,500 and insert 1,000. Now, the chair will say, is there any discussion on the amendment? You can do one of two things. A member can raise their hand and they can debate for or against the what? The amendment. I agree with the amendment. I disagree with the amendment. Or you can make another motion. Now, what I want you to stop and think about as a board member is how important it is to be rigorous with your debate and discussion. What are we discussing right now? Are we discussing the United Community Run? Are we discussing the XYZ Club? No, we're discussing the amount. We're discussing, is it $1,500 or $1,000? Okay, so you've got to be rigorous and focused with your discussion and your debate. That will help save your board a lot of life. Many boards never teach their board members how to be rigorous with their debate. And so we have people who like to tell stories and go on and off, and we waste a lot of life, right? Or we can make another motion. So for the sake of the first three, we had 7, we did 6, now we're at 3. I did that wrong. 7, 6, 3. There we go. Okay. I move to amend the amendment by striking out 1,000 and inserting 1,500. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're further defining the dollar amount. We're not talking about anything else but the dollar amount. Okay, so right now I couldn't have amended the amendment by striking out the United Community Run and asked for another thing because we're not focusing on that right now. We're focusing on the dollar amount. So again, what happens when a motion is made? When a motion is made, then all of a sudden we launch into our rhythm. The chair will say, is there a second to the amendment? And then repeat, it's been properly moved and seconded to amend the amendment by striking out 1,000 and inserting 500. Is there any discussion regarding the what? The amendment to the amendment, right? We're keeping our discussion focused. At that time, you can agree for the amendment to the amendment, agree with, or go against the amendment to the amendment. I agree with, I disagree with. or you can make another motion. All right, let's all take an intentional deep breath in. Going through that information very quick, because what I want you to focus on is I want you to focus on not just how to make the amendments, the main motion, the amendment, and amend the amendment, but I really want you to have an understanding of the voting process, because that's where a lot of people get lost. So I'm going to invite, wherever you are right now, I want you to roll your shoulders back, give your body a little energy, because I know I've been talking about some pretty cerebral things, right? I don't want the order to put you to sleep. I want it to motivate you. So we're going to talk about voting. So we just saw how to make those motions. Now let's look about how to vote on those motions. So again, we've established we have 3 motions on the floor. Okay, we have the main motion, the amendment, and amend the amendment. Now that's the item of business we're dealing with. So in order to clear this item of business, how many votes would we have to take? Okay, so go ahead and type it in the chat functionality. If we had to clear this item of business, how many votes would we have to take to move on to the next item of business? Okay, so go ahead, everybody type it into the chat functionality. I want to just see what people are thinking, just so I can get a temperature gauge. I saw a couple numbers come up. Okay, so we've got a main motion, an amendment, and amend the amendment. How many votes do we need to take in order to clear this item of business and move on? Come on, people, wake up. Put your numbers inside. Help me out. Here we go. I need a couple more people to help me out. Here it is. Okay, so in order to clear this, because remember, each one of these is a question. I move to make this main motion. I move to amend the main motion. I move to amend the amendment. So if we want to clear this item of business, we have to vote on the amendment to the amendment. And regardless if it passes or fails, we then have to vote on the amendment. And then regardless of if it passes or fails, we have to vote on that main motion. So when a motion is moved and seconded, it deserves its right to be voted on. Okay, so each of these need to be voted on. Now, I saw some confusion out there, so I'm really excited about this exercise. So I want you to really kind of tune in here, because I think it creates a lot of clarity. Okay, so let's just look at this. If I'm in a meeting and the chair says, is there any further discussion regarding amending the amendment, which is to strike out 1,000 and insert 500, and nobody raises their hand, that tells me as the chair, seeing no further discussion, we'll now vote on the amendment to the amendment. So when you don't see any more discussion, that's when you're going to vote. Okay? Now, if somebody says, question, that's an informal way of telling the chair, I'm ready to vote. The chair could be, question's been called. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll now vote on the amendment to the amendment. But if somebody raised their hand and said, I move the previous question, now we've made another motion. And we have to vote on the previous question. And if it passes, we immediately vote on the amendment to the amendment. But for the sake of this exercise, we're going to just focus on these first 3. So the chair says, is there any further discussion? There is no further discussion. So the chair will say, we'll now vote on the amendment. All in favor, aye. All opposed. If the amendment to the amendment fails, it just goes away. It just goes away. But I'm going to go back real quickly because I want you to see this. What is this vote on? The vote is between 500 and 1,000. Does everybody see that? That's what the vote is right now. The vote is, do you guys want 1,000 or you guys want 500? If you want 500, vote for the amendment to the amendment. If you don't want 500 and you think you want 1,000, vote to vote the amendment to the amendment down. Right? So let's look at that. So if it fails, the amendment to the amendment fails. The chair will then say, we will now reopen discussion on the amendment. Okay, and we just move on with the meeting. Is there any we get back into the rhythm? Now, this is what I want you to see, is what happens if the amendment to the amendment passes. So everybody take a deep breath. Here it is. If the amendment to the amendment passes, all those in favor of the amendment to the amendment say aye. All opposed? Oh, the amendment to the amendment passes. It now what? It becomes the new amendment. Okay, it becomes the new amendment. Now remember, the other vote was between 1,000 and 500. Now what is this between? It's between 500 and 1,500. Does everyone see that? That's why it's important that you have to go stair step by stair step. Now, if the amendment, so you can see here, if it passes, the amendment actually changes. Now, the chair will then say, we will now reopen discussion on our new amendment, which is to strike out 1,500 and insert 500. And the chair will say, is there any further discussion? And you're in the rhythm of Roberts. And at that time, you can raise your hand. You can either debate for or against the amendment, or you can make another motion, or nobody says anything and the chair says, seeing no further discussion, we will now vote on the amendment. Okay, and if it fails, then the amendment just goes away. The amendment fails. We will now get back into the rhythm, reopen discussion on our main motion. Okay, and so now we're in the rhythm. Now, what I want you to see is what happens if the amendment passes. Okay, so here, take a deep breath with me. All those in favor of the amendment, all opposed, amendment passes. Whoop. It now becomes the new main motion. So the chair will say the amendment passes. We will now get back into the rhythm, reopen discussion on the main motion, which is to approve $500 for the XYZ Club to support the 52nd Annual United Community Run. You can raise your hand. Is there any discussion? You can do one of two things. You can debate for or against the main motion, or you can make another motion. But if we were going to clear this item from the board, from the pyramid, we would simply vote on it, and then that would be our exit, and that would indicate to the chair we're moving on to our next item of business. All right. So I'm going to pause for just a moment because I just threw a lot of information out at you. We have 3 minutes left, but I wanted to just see if there were any kind of questions that were brewing out there. And then we're going to go over one last thing in the minute that we have, because I just want to just share with you that. Any questions, I'll field those in a moment. You can type them in the chat functionality. I'm going to just go over this last piece about debating items of business while you put your information in the chat functionality. These are just 3 very important tools when debating. Remember, number 1, restate the motion. Number 2, give your opinion. And then number 3, tell people how you want them to vote. Okay, so Roberts actually talks about friendly amendments now because so many people would make friendly amendments and nobody knew what friendly amendments were. And whenever I heard anybody say friendly amendment, I knew that they just didn't understand Robert's Rules of Order and they were scared of it, so they were trying to make it more friendly. There really is no such thing as a friendly amendment, but what Roberts is now advising the chair to do is to just simply treat a friendly amendment as an amendment. Okay, so if someone says, I'd like to make a friendly amendment, the chair should say, state your amendment, and then receive a second, then restate the amendment, and then ask for discussion. Great question. All right, so we did go through this, the content, the context, and the chair. I'm hoping that this webinar today motivated you to think about how you could not only use Roberts to be more productive, but how you could use it as a tool to really foster a more productive and healthy meeting dynamic. Please, please, please. I want a raise hand functionality, a little raise hand emoji. If you will make sure that you reach out to Kevin to ask to be put on to the Robert's Rules of Order training resource portal. Okay, so Kevin's information is here. You can also reach out to me. I'm Susan at robertsrulesmadesimple.com, and we will get you access to this training portal. Be an advocate, not just for yourself, but for your board to run better, more productive meetings. I want to say thank you for your time, your energy, and your life. I appreciate your presence here today. My name is Susan Leahy, and happy meetings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
And thank you for everybody who has joined this webinar. This was very informative. We will be back tomorrow for the last day of Ethics Week 2025 at 10:30 a.m. The subject will be legal ethics for government attorneys. And on behalf of the Office of Open Government, we thank you all, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Susan, and thank you, Jerry.